Hello there, people of the internet. So I was actually just pulling some bullets from some old surplus ammo that I had laying around, and these are actually them right here. And while I was doing that, I was just hanging out, doing my thing. I had the TV going in the background, and I was browsing YouTube comments and just essentially chilling out, enjoying my Sunday, right? And I came across one particular comment that asked, "Hey, I have this old surplus ammo. Can I pull the bullets and use them for reloading components?" And I get this question so often, and I don't know why, because I have no idea why people seem to think that they can't use those bullets for reloading components. Like, what process of pulling the projectile from surplus ammo? I just don't understand why people ask, "Hey, can I use those for components?" And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. The beautiful thing about reloading with surplus bullets is you normally get the same spec bullets to where you don't really have to worry about anything unusual. Not unless you're dealing with some kind of unusual round, like say if you're pulling AP ammo or if you're pulling tracer rounds or something like that. But if you're pulling just like the standard ball ammo of whatever country it is that you're talking about, odds are they're all going to be pretty gosh darn similar. Now, normally whenever we talk about using ammunition, like surplus ammo for components, we think about, all right, the bullets are going to be fine. But a lot of people ask, "Hey, can I use the gunpowder as well?" And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. Assuming the gunpowder has not degraded, you can look up online what particular kind of ammo you're pulling and see if it is normal to see if powder has degraded in those particular cartridges. But if the powder has not degraded, then yeah, you absolutely can use those again for a reloading component. The big thing with surplus ammo is what makes them go click bang and cause duds and hang fires is like 95% of the time going to be the primers. Just your primers over time, moisture gets to them, they get compromised, things happen to make them less reliable. And a lot of people seem to assume it's the powder, and way more often than not, it's not the powder. The powder in like 95% of your cartridges out there, you can pull the powder, load it into a new case, and just have a fresh primer, and the thing's going to work just fine. So, whenever it comes to using your powder, you want to figure out what kind of powder it is that you actually have inside of your case. Like, for example, I was pulling some Lake City 7.62 NATO the other day, and I can't remember what kind of powder was actually used in those. I don't think I ever even bothered looking it up. But you can look up online Lake City 7.62 NATO, what powder is being used, and the internet will tell you what powder is being used. And if you are pulling some, I don't know, mystery surplus 8mm Mauser ammo, for example, if you're pulling something that you can't find information on as to what the powder actually is, then what you can do is you can measure the powder in the case and then look at a reloading table and see what powder matches that is measured in the case, and you should come up with a similar burning rate powder. I would recommend undercharging your round if you decide to use that for something else besides what it is actually meant for. Or if you don't feel like messing with any powder charges or anything like that, I would recommend just loading it back into the same caliber of cartridge that you're using. Like, for example, if you pull 45 grains out of this 8mm Mauser surplus round, load that 45 grains into another 8mm Mauser round, in this particular case probably modern brass with a modern primer, versus taking that 45 grains of 8mm Mauser and loading it into, say, a 30-06 or something like that. You might end up having some issues with that just because of case dimensions and the way that powder burns and whatnot. If you don't know what kind of powder it actually is, then I would recommend just using the same case that it came out of. But as for the projectiles themselves, I have no idea why people have to ask me if they can actually reload with these, because the answer is yes, you absolutely can. Especially because it's really easy, because all of these are basically going to be the same spec. If you're pulling, say, in this particular case, this is 7.62 NATO, basically all your 7.62 NATO ball rounds are going to be the same spec. They're going to be a 147 to 150 grain bullet, which is not really enough of a bullet weight to really matter in terms of the charges that you're doing unless you want to get really accurate ammunition. but they're all going to be between a 147 to a 150 grain bullet. Most of them are going to be the 147 grain. But the issue with these right here is even in the same batch of ammunition that you get, just because these are like cheap, mass-produced ball rounds, they're made to a very tolerant spec. A lot of times these right here, not necessarily these particular bullets, but just your surplus bullets in general, they will vary like 2 or 3 different grains from bullet to bullet, which is one of the reasons why I say the disparities in whether or not they're a 147 or a 150 grain is not enough to really matter, just because the bullet weights themselves are going to vary between batch to batch, and 3 grains difference in bullet weight with random miscellaneous surplus ball ammo really is not out of the question to see. So what that essentially equates to is that although these are, ball rounds, and if you're deciding to pull them and reload them for whatever reason, if you decide to use these bullets, you can go through and weigh them individually, which most of us are not going to bother doing that. We're just going to take them and load them into whatever it is that we're going to be mag dumping into some garbage with. But these rounds are not going to be very accurate. They're not match grade rounds. I imagine if you took a bunch of these and measured them out with some calipers, you might get some deviations in bullet diameter as well. As a matter of fact, I have seen deviations in bullet diameter with commercial ammunition, let alone mass-produced military surplus ammo, and I have seen them vary greatly. Like, I think I've seen some Remington bullets vary all the way up to like 10 thousandths of an inch, which is a lot for bullets. But that's probably a story for another time. Long story short, if you do decide to pull surplus bullets and reload them and use them for whatever purposes it is that you're using them for, don't expect tremendous accuracy. Just because the bullets that are being made, they're not made for tremendous accuracy. The ammo that's made for ball ammo is supposed to have like a 4 MOA standard of accuracy out of the platforms that are being fielded by most of the militaries around the world. It's not made for match grade shooting. You can go out and get match grade bullets, in which case they're going to be significantly more expensive just because the quality control of them makes sure that they're all the exact same weight and the exact same diameter. So that's just not something that you get with your cheapo surplus rounds. But considering that most individual shooters are going to be shooting like within 100 yards, and most of them are going to be worse than 4 MOA accuracy shooters, then you're going to have absolutely no problems reloading with your surplus ball ammo. The one thing that I will give a caveat on is if you have like some sort of old school World War II exploding ammo or something along the sorts of that, to where the round itself is designed to actually go bang, you don't want to unload those with an inertia puller. I have seen those absolutely blow up. 110% they will detonate from an inertia puller because they're designed to where the bullet smacks into something and that's whenever it pops and blows up. So be careful with some of your military surplus rounds. Pay attention to what it is that you're actually pulling. But for your lead core, full metal jacket, random ball ammunition, dude, you can do a lot of stuff with that. You can load it into a bunch of different cartridges. Like this is a 308 diameter bullet. It's a 150 grain bullet. And I pulled them from 7.62 NATO. I can load these into, say, 308, which is extraordinarily similar to 7.62 NATO. I can load them into 30-06. I got a 7.5 Swiss there I can load them into. I can load them into, if I want to start looking at some European calibers, although they are going to be slightly undersized, I could load them into my Mosin Nagant that I got right there. I could load them into 303 British, I can load them into 7.7 Jap, I can load them into a variety of different cartridges that I have available to me that take that 308 diameter bullet. As a matter of fact, since these are a 308 diameter but they're 150 grain, I could probably load these into 7.62 by 39 as well and get fairly decent reliability out of, say, an AK or an SKS, assuming that I use appropriate powder charges. But that would take some playing around with, because the only time I ever load 7.62 by 39 is with a 123 grain bullet. But the bottom line is, I can take these bullets that I pulled from cheapo surplus ammo, and I can load them into a variety of different cartridges if I felt like it. Yes, you can use these for reloading. I have no idea why people just are under the assumption that surplus ammo cannot be reloaded. A lot of people specifically buy surplus ammo so they get those reloading components. that they can take and use for whatever purposes it is that they're looking to use it for. As a matter of fact, you can go out and get like corroded ammo for dirt cheap, pull all the bullets, pull all the gunpowder, and use that stuff to be able to reload your cartridges. So there you go. Hopefully that answered y'all's questions. For the life of me, I cannot imagine why people do not think that they can use these for reloading. I literally got no idea. I guess if you use like a pair of pliers to pull them out and they get all scratched up and scuffed up, then you might not want to use those depending on how messed up they are. That's the only thing I can think of. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.